Coming to you from the Deep South, this is the Blue Collar Leadership Podcast. High-impact leadership is not reserved for leaders, and it has nothing to do with your position, title, or rank. However, it does have everything to do with your character. It's time to climb to the next level and beyond, personally and professionally. Now, let's start making it happen with your host, Max Story.
Hello, everyone, and thanks for watching the Real People Getting Real Results show on the Blue Collar Leadership YouTube channel, or if you're listening on the Blue Collar Leadership podcast, thanks for doing that. And again, if you're a first-time listener to the podcast, you can go to the Blue Collar Leadership YouTube channel and actually watch this, so you can see how awesome Brian Brogan is looking today. My guest, I'm really happy to have Brian. Brian's been actually on the podcast before, episode 175, which was released May 1st of 2020. So it's been a while since I had you on, Brian. So thanks for coming back.
You know, it has been a while. I'm excited to be back. I've been listening to these podcasts and enjoying those folks you're interviewing that are making a difference, that are getting results.
Yeah, man. So you watched some of the videos.
I haven't watched the videos. I've been listening to the podcast.
Oh, you've been listening. Okay. Yeah, that's why I keep putting them out there. I'm like, some people like the podcast and some people like the video. So I really hate to do both because it kind of takes up two spots. But that's been a challenge for me because I don't want to put out too many podcast episodes. So now I'm not doing all my teaching like I used to. But some point, I'm sure we'll run out of having a guest available every week. So then I'll start kind of mixing it back up again or something like that. But anyway, I really appreciate it. Can you catch everybody up, Brian, that hasn't heard you before on the other podcast? How we actually know each other? If you remember that far back, it's been a while back.
I do remember. In fact, it was a key point in my career and in my life and in this training and coaching business. I sent you a message on LinkedIn and I asked you about doing some collaboration. And you came back with, from my perspective, a very curt, I don't collaborate with anybody. I protect my brand. And I thought we were done. I was like, well, thank you for your time. And I was moving on. And a few hours, I think, later, I got hey, if you ever want to talk to me, though, give me a phone call. And you put your phone number in the message, and I called you, and we had an amazing conversation. From memory, I think that was on a Thursday afternoon. We talked, I think, for an hour and a half. You told me about how I should write a book. You told me how I should do a podcast. I was overwhelmed and encouraged and inspired. And Tuesday morning, it's been 5 years ago now, I uploaded a podcast and been podcasting ever since. So you've inspired me, Mac. Thank you.
You got busy, man. And I that's one reason I really enjoy talking to you. And I'm really, really happy to have you as a guest again on the show. And you've grown so much since the last time that you're going to have a lot to share. And I can't wait for you to share all that. You know, I've learned something since then, though, Brian. For whatever reason, back in those days, whenever it still stings me a little bit, but when somebody asks I get a lot of messages, people want to collaborate. And, you know, I have grown since I talked to you. Used to, I just say, what I told you, I don't collaborate. I try to say it in a nice way because some people are turned off by it when you say no or whatever. But now I figured out, I just always ask, what's that word collaborate mean to you? It means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. A lot of times people ask me that and all they want is me to be on their podcast. They don't want, what I call collaborating is like working together in a business and to accomplish some shared mission and that sort of stuff. And Rhea and I really don't do that because we're very intentional about building our brand around us and our character and who we are. And you understand all that stuff now, but for anybody listening, that I'm happy to be on podcasts and things like that, but Rhea and I don't really mix our brand with somebody else's, literally. So,
yeah, and I completely understand and appreciate that. You know, I had just begun. In fact, I joined the John Maxwell team in 2018. So that was 2019, less than a year in. Yeah. And I was just kind of finding my way. And I'm glad I met you because you kind of gave me a little more course direction on building a brand, building my own brand. And that was great.
Yeah. So you've been growing. What were you doing then at that time when you discovered me or reached out to me and we started talking? What were you doing and what had you been doing?
So my full-time job at that time was the executive, or I keep saying executive because I was an executive, but I was the vice president of field operations at a construction company. And we had a large team of folks we worked with doing field operations, maintenance, and power plants and new construction. And I volunteered for a high school program called the ACE Mentor Program approximately 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And while I did that, I discovered I like building people as much as I like building buildings. And so I started a side hustle back in 2018, doing coaching, training, and speaking, trying to just get my feet wet with this. And so that was what I was doing at the time. I was full-time and a construction executive and part-time doing coaching and training.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome, man. And, there's another lesson in there for the folks who are watching the two of us talk today, because I know you'll share this out to your network. I'm definitely obviously sharing it to my network, and because you're basically doing the same thing I'm doing. I'm doing the same thing you're doing. We're just doing it in different ways because we're different people, but we're doing the same thing. We're helping people have a better life at work and at home. You agree?
I agree. Absolutely. And we're not competing. I haven't seen you in any of my clients' offices. Have you seen me in any of yours?
No. And that's the thing, I want people to know is, in this space, I don't see, there's no competition. I mean, there's plenty of room for everybody. I mean, there's people that may love Brian and they hate me. They may love me and they hate Brian, or they just maybe just like him less than they do me. Right? There's all kind of people. I see those people. There's people I read their books and I love them, and other people write about the same thing and I read their books and I don't really care. We're all different. We all got, every single one of us unique. But the main thing I want people to take away right there is, there's no competition. Some people will be like, why are you sharing each other? Why are you sharing each other to the world? Because there's people that need you, Brian. That's why I want people to know who you are, really more about who you are as a person. So you were just getting wound up. You had just went to the John Maxwell training, which Rhea and I did also back in 2012 and 13, 14, 15. We did a lot, probably like you did. But you had just got in there about a year before I met you. You went in 18. Then I met you or started talking to you in 19, right?
That's right.
And then I talked to you about a podcast, because I had a podcast and you started. So you started your podcast in 19.
That's right. Yep. In fact, we celebrated 5 years yesterday.
Yeah, 5 years. That's what I was wanting you to tell folks. You didn't just start it and piddle around with it. You've had a lot of episodes. You know how many episodes you've had around about?
It's like it's approaching 180. It might be a little over 180. In fact, 2 years ago, when I launched my full-time coaching and training business, I decided to go to every other week as opposed to once a week.
Yeah.
So I guess the consistency has changed a little bit.
Yeah.
We're still on a schedule and we're still making it happen. In fact, I went out and looked at listen notes this morning and discovered we were in the top 5%. At one point, we were in the top 3%. But that's not because I have a ton of listeners. That's because I've been consistent. And what a lot of podcasters don't do is maintain a schedule and stick with it.
Yeah. Yeah. And what's the name of your podcast?
It's the Build Your Success Podcast.
Build Your Success Podcast.
Yep.
All right. So anybody out there listening who likes my show, likes my podcast, check out what Brian, and what is your, what's the theme of your podcast? What type of people do you have on, or what do you talk about, or both?
So we interview leaders of organizations, leaders of companies. I do kind of have some focus on the skilled trade, your blue collar. I also do technical. So some of the engineers and folks like that we have on our podcast, but just trying to have a conversation. We began at episode 69 to ask the question, what does leadership and being a leader mean to you? So that's one of our signature questions now. We get a ton of responses. As you alluded to, we're all different. So leadership's like DNA. I lead differently and I'm led differently than others. So that's where I really enjoy asking that question, hearing the diverse answers from it. Yeah,
that's phenomenal. So let's go back, and we're going to talk about all kind of stuff. So you can talk about anything you want to at any time whenever it pops up. But I want to go back to that. You were a vice president in construction. You had went to John Maxwell team a year before I met you. So 2019, you were still a vice president in construction, and you started your podcast while you was still a vice president in construction, right?
That's right.
And so, but you're not a vice president in construction anymore. So how did all that happen from 2019 when I met you you were growing and going and shifting, making slight changes. What, paint that picture from 2019 kind of professionally to where you are now. How did all that type stuff happen? Your growth and change and transformation and all that stuff.
Well, it has been a roller coaster ride. You'll probably remember starting your business so many years ago. It's tough. I mean, starting a business is difficult. And I had, ambitions and dreams of I'm going to go out there and set the world on fire. That hasn't happened. But I have had amazing opportunities, been coast to coast at this point doing training and leadership. I made that transition because, again, I decided I like building people as much or more than I like building buildings. And if I can go out and help companies improve their communication, improve their culture, and grow their leadership, then I feel like I'm making the changes that I want to make in the world.
Yeah. And you live down around Tampa. Is Bradenton, is that right?
So I live in a little community, Mulberry, that's just
Mulberry.
south of Lakeland. We're between Tampa and Orlando is the best way to describe that.
Oh, okay. It's not Bradenton.
No, we're near there, but not. That's about an hour for us.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on down there. Rhea and I actually leaving as we record this. We're leaving Saturday to go down to Venice for about four days coming up. So we'll be down that way a little bit later. So when did you resign from being vice president? What year was that?
So it's actually been almost exactly 2 years. I guess June. It must be a pivotal month for me because I did that 2 years ago in June.
Okay, so you kept going for 3 or 4 more years after you started the podcast, and then you resigned, retired, whatever you call it, and so that'd be 2022. You pull that trigger, and kept your podcast going. I know you got a book series you started. Tell me about that.
Well, you encouraged me to write a book, and in fact, I told you I have no idea how to write a book. I barely graduated high school, and English was my worst subject in high school.
Oh yeah, you got your other book. Yeah, tell me about that first book too.
The first book I wrote was the 100-hour pilot, and you were friendly enough to give me a book template, and so I just started hammering away and writing words. And as John Maxwell says, you got to write words to write sentences, and sentences to write paragraphs, and paragraphs to write books.
Yeah.
So that's what I did, and I hired someone to do the proofreading and editing, and thankfully we have those kind of folks in the world that can help us out with that.
Yeah.
And so the first book was that 100-hour pilot where I wrote about living or fulfilling my lifelong dream of becoming a pilot. You mentioned Venice. I got to take my niece. She was leaving for the Army a couple weeks ago, and I took her down to Venice. We ate breakfast at the airport, then came back. It's a beautiful flight down to the beach. So becoming a pilot was amazing, and I wanted to write that book first. And then we began a series called Voices for Leadership, where we invited 40 authors, some of them from our podcast, and then others throughout the world, LinkedIn, just all over the place.
Yeah.
So we put together 40 authors for volume 1, and then we put together 40 authors for volume 2. And today I'm working on volume 3, which I'm really excited about. It's going to be our youth version. So we're getting youth leaders from age 17 to 22 that have to be sponsored by a mentor, and they're going to write a chapter. So we're excited about that opportunity as well. Young people was the start of the catalyst for me doing leadership through that ACE mentor program. So I'm really excited about this volume 3.
Yeah, that's really good. You might be onto something with that, Brian, right there, because that one may actually be. You may do some more series on that one because that sounds really interesting. And
I'm stoked about it. I've got a lot of interest in it since I've been posting about that, and really going to have some amazing stories by young people. You don't have to be 80 years old to lead or 50 years old to lead. There's some young people doing some amazing things. So we're excited about that.
Yeah, man. So that's cool. Once you get that out, I mean, I don't know if you may have planned on this already. You may have done it already, but you could either do one-on-one, some podcast interview with them, or get several of them on, one show, a couple of them, 4 or 5 of them, be promoting them, but also just listen to how they talk about leadership and life. That could be pretty cool. I don't know if it fits into your platform.
Oh, it does. Absolutely. Yeah. We want to encourage them and inspire them to be great leaders. Hey, you mentored me when I first started this, so I want to help mentors others and pass that along.
That's awesome. I wish all the people I mentored got as many results as you did, Brian. A lot of them don't do anything, but part of this show right here is because I know all of you and all of you don't know all the people that I know. And I'm like, I need to see if I can get these folks to get on and help me help other people, help me motivate and inspire other people. I'm helping you, it's a win-win from the 7 habits, habit 4 is think win-win. And I'm winning because you're on the show. I'm winning because you're helping me. You're winning because you're on the show, and you're winning because you're helping me, and I'm helping you. And that's what I want people to see. So that's why I'm excited about this show, is because people get to see all the, they may be watching somebody and they're like, well, that person's not like me. But they can watch another episode and then they say, oh, that person's kind of like me. And then they watch another person. Well, that person's exactly like me, maybe doing the same job and the same ambition and that sort of stuff. So thank you again, man, for taking your time to be on the show. So,
well, I'm glad I'm not alone. I love to hear Chad's story and Jason's story. I hear you talking about them, and especially Jason, man. You just leaned into that guy, and he's done some amazing things. So I'm looking forward to years going by and me being able to say some of those same things. So what you're doing, Mac, is amazing, helping these other people achieve. And you say it all the time, and I want people to realize you don't charge us to mentor us and coach us and help us. You do it because you want to see the results.
Yeah, I'm blessed enough that I can make enough money just really through book sales. And it's not phenomenal money, but I ain't looking to be super wealthy. I'm looking to make a big difference. And luckily, Rhea and I've been blessed that we make enough to do it the way we want to do it. That's the one thing I don't ever really want to change. I want to, because when I'm mentoring you for free, I'm doing it because I want to help you. I mean, everybody seems to know that. If they get to know me, they know we're busy. We're always busy. We're like crazy busy most of the time. And it just, to me, it means more. I never had too many people. Jimmy Collins, former president of Chick-fil-A, he's the one person that stands out for me in my life since I met him in 2015, that a real person who's achieved some stuff, who actually take their time to talk with me. And he's 88 years old now. I don't bother him very often. I call and check in on him or send him a text and that sort of stuff. But I really value that. And so I appreciate that you see me as that kind of person, because that's what I want to be. I'm always available. I tell people, don't call and talk about football, sports, and deer hunting. I ain't interested in that anymore. Used to be. But anybody wants to use me to help them get better personally or professionally, all they got to do is call. That's why I put my phone number out there. And I know you shared your phone number for us to put here on the screen. So why did you do that, Brian? Tell me real quick. Why did you want not just your contact info, but there's your phone number right there, 863-800-9658. If you're not watching the video, but you're listening to the podcast, why is it okay for us to throw out? Is that your cell phone, or what kind of number is that?
That is my cell phone number. And you've set that example for us where you're available. If we want to call, we can get a hold of you, text you. So I want to be the same way. I want to follow that example. I hope one day I get to the point I can't answer all the phone calls, but today Brian answers the phone calls. So definitely. And I want to hear from people. I mean, if someone's listening to this or sees this and has a question, maybe I can help them, kind of overcome some obstacles. So definitely worthwhile to share your number and be accessible for others.
Yeah. So what kind of questions or interactions, what would you want people, if they called you, what are you looking for from them? I mean, if they're looking for professional, personal, any kind of specific things that you can help them with?
Well, like you did for me, I've helped several people create podcasts. I was, just laid out, hey, this is how Max showed me to do it, and some other things I've learned along the way. And then helping these people become authors in the book, that's a fun thing to do that people have never written before. So, hey, if you never write a chapter, you'll never write a book. So I encourage them to do that. So those are the kind of things I try to help people with. I am not a B2C, business to consumer. I'm more after businesses for my actual paycheck. But anytime I can help people in the peripheral, that's what I want to be able to do.
Yeah, that's a good way to see it. See, I ain't all slick like you, Brian. I can't articulate all that fancy talk like you talking. I always just say I'm looking for the corporate money. I talk to people for free. That's why I do the podcast for free. The newsletter for free. Do you happen to have a newsletter? I can't remember if you do or not on LinkedIn.
I do not have a newsletter. I do write a blog once a month. And I struggle to write. I mean, I get it's not something that I'm excited to do. But I realize I like to tell stories. And if I can tell them in writing, it's going to last for generations. So I do force myself to write.
Do you post that blog on LinkedIn as an article or anything like that?
I don't. I probably should, Mac. That's probably something you're coaching me right now, that I need to start, dual purposing that blog article.
Yeah, you could, and really, you need to do it as a newsletter, and we can talk about that some other time. I don't want to turn this into, my thing, but anybody listening though, if you do the newsletter, the very first time you send it out, it basically sends an invitation to everybody on everybody who's connected with you as a first connection. It don't ever bother them after that, but the very first time, I think it does go out to everyone, ask them to subscribe. After that, people just have to do it organically, which is the way I like it to be. But anyway, we can talk about that later. So that's awesome that you write in that blog. So let's go back and talk a little bit about just your journey for anybody out there, because a lot of blue collar people listen to me. Our biggest segment of our business is construction, even though my background's manufacturing. Manufacturers don't invest a lot into the people. They just want them to push buttons, load machines, do the repetitive work. They don't want to slow them down most of the time. But the construction industry does seem to do a lot of development of people, which is awesome. And so talk a little bit just about your growth journey for some young people. If there's young people out there, you didn't start out as vice president, I'm sure.
Absolutely not. I tell everybody I was looking for a job.
And looking for a job. So how did you start?
Yeah, so I was working at Publix as a bag boy.
Okay.
And a guy from the construction industry came and said, "Hey, do you need a job?" And I was like, "I don't think so. I'm working here." And I had goals of becoming a manager of a grocery store. And so I did decide, okay, you know what? I'm tired of coming in so early in the morning. When you're stocking shelves, you got to be in work at like 4:00 in the morning. So I tried out this construction thing. I was only 17 years old because I graduated high school early. And,
I knew you were sharp. See, I picked up on that a minute ago.
No, it was only because I'm an October baby. There was no sharpness there. In fact, I had to do credits, the community service half hour to get out of high school because I failed so many classes. So definitely, it wasn't because I was smart. It was just because of my chronological date there.
Okay.
At 17, I couldn't do much, so they put me in the office as a shipping clerk and a gopher. Mac, I'm sure you know what a gopher is.
I know all about it.
Yeah. So the shipping clerk, my job was to tally up steel and check the weights and make sure the loads were going to be categorized properly. But then that gopher piece was that I would go out and get parts, go pick up materials, whatever was needed, tools, and bring them back to either the fabrication or the job site. So
yeah, real quick, Brian, for the folks who don't know, because some people listen who are not blue collar folks, but what's that gopher term? What's that mean?
It's for this and go for that. So I'd be running after parts and materials and supplies.
Okay.
So fast forward a little bit, and I turn 18 years old, and I get to go work in the shop, and I'm so excited that I get to go out and work around forklifts and heavy equipment and stuff I wasn't allowed to work with it before. And I'm standing there with a crew. We're assembling these big conveyors. I think it was probably for a coal conveyor, so they're 36-inch wide, and these belts that go on them that convey material.
Yeah.
And our tool broke. So there's three of us standing around with nothing to do because the tool's broke. So I go check out the truck because they remembered me as the gopher. I ran and got the parts we needed to get the tool fixed and came back expecting a hero's welcome. And my supervisor was livid. He wanted to know where I'd been, what I was doing. I was like, we were standing around. I went and got his part. He said, "You don't leave this job site without my permission."
You was making it happen. Now you
I was making it happen. So then I had to go to the big boss's office, which reminded me of going to the principal's office in high school.
Oh, yeah.
So here I'm headed to the big boss's office, and he sits me down. And he said, "Brian, you shouldn't have left the work area without telling your supervisor. But I want to tell you, I do recognize that you have aggression." And he said, "We have to harness that aggression." And that was a life lesson for me. When he told me that, I understood it, got it, realized, you know what? That supervisor is responsible for me. If I'm missing, they have some anxiety about that.
Oh, yeah.
And he shared that anxiety when I returned with full color. But what I came to understand was, you know what? I do need to say, "Hey, listen, I know how to correct this problem. Would you like for me to do it?" and get that kind of permission. But I came up through the ranks. Next thing you know, they asked me to be a lead man over a small crew, and then supervisor and foreman, general foreman, superintendent, manager, project manager. And finally, that vice president of construction, where I got to lead the whole team out in the field. So a lot of amazing things that happened over those 28 years.
Yeah, 28 years, man. You got so anybody at any level in the construction industry that wants to pick your brain, they can reach out to you and get to know you, and you might give them some tips, and who knows what they might turn into. But when you were talking about leading the field, I just remembered, and I had forgot about this till you just said it, but you conducted at least one book study, because I remember you sent me a picture, if I ain't mistaken. I meet so many people and I can't remember, but I'm pretty sure you sent me that picture with the book in the steering wheel of the truck pulled over on the side of the road. Is that right?
I did that. In fact, we did do that book study. Your 30 chapters, right? I think we did a 15 weeks. So we did 2 chapters per week. And there was a week that I was out in the field. I was actually at the Tampa port where the big ships come in and out and deliver materials. And I gave myself the excuse that I can't go to the book study today because I'm at the port. And then I said, wait a minute, I could get on the Zoom call just like the guys from the field do, and I can be on the book study. So I did what you said. I laid the book across the steering wheel, put it on speakerphone, and participated in the book study. So it just made me realize you can make excuses or you can get results.
That's exactly right. And you probably don't even know or realize, but I've shared that story a lot, when I'm speaking, because a lot of leaders are busy. It's hard to get people in the same room. Some of you can be in the same room. Some of you can be in a different room. Some can be in the field. If you want to make it happen, you go make it happen, right? That's what you did. And you were leading your leaders through the book study, or was it entry level folks? Who was on the other end?
We were actually leading our superintendents and project managers were on that call. If I remember right, there was about 16 folks participating in that group.
Okay. How did they like it in the beginning?
They really enjoyed it. Yeah. In fact, they wanted to do it again. However, with me leaving, I'm not sure they went that same leadership. So I don't know, but definitely they enjoyed it. And we would give those books out to supervisors after that. And what was great about that was the superintendent, the managers knew the book and knew what kind of impact it could have when they handed it out to their foreman, their super, and then front line as well. It's like, give it to anybody that wants it.
Yeah, because they had been through it. Had you ever led anybody through a book study before that on any other kind of books?
I had not. I got exposed to some of the book studies from John Maxwell, but I hadn't done any of them. Yours was the first, because what yours did that others don't do, and this, is it breaks it down into bite-sized pieces, and that fits our skilled trades industry very well. They don't want to read that's 7 Habits that you encouraged me to read. I read about the first 2/3 of it, and I had to get the back end on an audio book. I did get through it, but that's a tough book.
Yeah, I tell people, what you've heard me say on my podcast, I'm sure that'd make your head hurt. That really ain't the book for people to start out with. And if I would have started out with the paper copy of the book, I probably wouldn't have ever got where I got. But I had a 1-hour audio highlight. I just had the golden nuggets out of it, right? And I didn't know there was a book. Listen to it over and over. But yeah, that book's got some gold in it. But
that reminds me, Mac, I had this experience that I got to tell you about.
Yeah, man.
The Florida Transportation Builders Association meets every year at this conference, and they brought in Stephen M.R. Covey.
Yep, his son, Dr. Covey's
right.
son.
And The Speed of Trust is one of my favorite books. I use it in my training.
Yep.
So I carried my dog-eared copy of the Speed of Trust to get Mr. Stephen M.R. Covey to sign it. And I was intentionally, I was the last person in line because I wanted a few minutes to tell him about the book.
You want some extra?
Yeah. So we started having conversations.
You were beginning with the end in mind, Brian. I had to interrupt you. That's what
I sure was. So I finally get to see him, and we have a conversation. He asked me what I do, and I told him I use some of your material in my workshops. But I told him about how I discovered I like building people as much as I like building buildings. And he said, Brian, that's amazing. He said, my dad, Stephen Covey, when I was trying to decide what I was going to go to in college, I was looking at architecture. And he said his dad sat him down and said, that's fine. I want you to think about this. Would you rather build people or would you rather build buildings?
Wow.
I had no knowledge of that, but I've been saying that for probably 5 years now.
That's awesome.
So we had that. I get to meet him and have that story just is amazing.
Wow, that was That was really awesome. You know, when you're talking about that deal, I forgot a lot, Brian. But I remember we met at least once, maybe twice. You guys, you were influential in having us come speak at something down there. I don't even remember what that was now, but the thing I'm thinking about the most is we met you at least once for a dinner. I don't know if that's the same trip or that was a different trip down at St. Armand's Circle. We met at that.
Yeah, so that was our second dinner meeting. Was at St. Armand's Circle at the Columbia restaurant on St. Armand's
Yeah,
Circle.
we had the steak. You bought us a steak dinner at the Capitol.
I found out you were going to be in Orlando, and I was like, hey, wait a minute. So I called you, say, hey, you like steak? And unfortunately, Rhea, she's not on the steak side, but we were able to buy you a steak, and it was really good.
Yeah, that was awesome. You know, what's interesting, I just got to share this with you about that St. Armand Circle. I don't know if you ever heard this guy, but, you know, when I got so much into my growth, I kind of just quit listening to music and all kind of stuff. I was just always thinking or listening to audio of, you know, the good stuff, what I call it, the personal growth, leadership development. But somehow, you know, I watch a lot of YouTube for learning. I don't watch really all the crazy, silly stuff. I watch interesting stuff to help get some of the other stuff out of my mind because, you know, I quit drinking alcohol back in 2012. So I ain't got nothing to help turn this thing off right here except, you know, go watch some interesting shows on YouTube. But there's a guy, you ever heard of that Davidas guy down there singing? He used to sing with a guitar in the street.
Makes his own music, like with the records and
yeah, like a one-man band. Yeah.
I have.
Did you ever see him in person?
I haven't, no, but I know where I've wanted to hope to see him down there, but I've not caught him yet.
Oh yeah, he moved to California, but he travels around. But that guy is a wizard. I like authentic. See, he's just so authentic because he just is, and he is a wizard on that electric guitar. So if anybody don't know who he is, they need to go check out old Davidas. But I noticed when I was watching him one time that I was like, that's that place. We sat right there, but I could see our table that we sit outside. I said, that's where we had dinner with Brian at.
Yeah.
And anyway, that's a side thing. But so what's on your mind that you really want to share with the folks today?
Well, I would encourage you today. This is that I mentioned it earlier, but if you know a young person age 17 to 22 that is exemplifying leadership and can tell a leadership story, write a chapter, introduce me to them. You know, give me that phone call, send me an email. Let me know about that person because I'm definitely recruiting those folks right now for that book. So I'm really excited about that. And then if I can help you in any other way, you know, again, construction workers, if you want to know, hey, what does it look like to have a career in construction? In fact, my teachers threatened me with digging ditches when I was in high school, and lo and behold, that's what I did.
Yeah. So these young folks you're talking about, what do these young folks look like? The kind you're interested in? Have they been in a leadership role or in school or in church or at home or what is that? What's that person look like? Yeah. Paint me a picture of the perfect candidate for that book.
All of the above. In fact, again, the reason I come to this thought and idea, for the ACE Mentor program, we do a scholarship application every year. And I start to read what these young people are doing. And I'm like, wow, it'd be great to get this. And they don't even, you know what? They don't even know. Just like sometimes we don't know how well we're leading, how well we're doing until somebody brings it to our attention. These young people have no idea how they're way above the pack when it comes to leadership skills. And if I can help them do that. But yeah, if they've been doing well, you know, leading, maybe they're a captain of a team, maybe they're the leader of a FBA or any type of organization, FFA, their construction or whatever they're working on. If they've been a leader in that group and can write about their experience and share examples of how other people have mentored them, that's what we're looking for.
What about, this is slightly different. It may not fit. If it doesn't, that's okay. But if it does, I definitely want it to shine some light on it. But because it would probably be kind of rare. But what if some young person had actually transformed themselves, even at a young age? Like maybe when they were a young teen, they were going down the wrong path. And then maybe in their middle or upper teens, the light bulb came on and they actually switched gears. But maybe they don't see themselves as a leader. Is that a kind of person that fits or no?
You just struck a chord, Mac.
Okay.
I was in a youth home at 14 years old, and
this is good stuff, man. Be real, Brian.
That guy wouldn't have done all these things. That guy that was knocking holes in walls, kicking in doors, hate and rage.
You used to be that guy
That was me. Yep.
when you were
And
14.
when I got out, and I didn't spend a whole lot of time in there. My mom likes to remind me it was only several weeks, but I realized I didn't want to be there, and I didn't want to be that type of person anymore. And so definitely, if someone has changed, hey, my business is called Build because I want to build people up, but rebuild is something that's been on my heart for a long time. And people, even if it's maybe it's not a young person, maybe it's an adult that's been incarcerated and their life, and they got out and they've changed their life dramatically. Yeah, I definitely, those stories resonate with me for sure.
Okay, because I thought they probably would, but a lot of people who listening don't realize that that's a good model example of leadership. A lot of people thinks leadership means you got to be the boss. You've had to have a big team or been a VP in a company. But somebody who's transformed themselves, regardless of their age, they're the best leaders there are, because we're the hardest person that we'll ever lead. And that's powerful though. But that emotion that started to come out there, man, that's a tap on the shoulder. That is your passion. All this stuff you're doing, you know, even when you told me about the young folks version of this book, the third volume, I even felt different when I heard that. Just me, because I just think that was nothing against what you've done in the first two volumes, but for whatever reason, that third one resonated with me in a different way. And then when I mentioned that to you, to see that emotion come over you, and hopefully, you know, you've heard me talk about drilling down in that funnel. Just keep growing. You know, when we're young, we'll go anywhere in the top of that funnel. We'll do whatever anybody wants us to do. But as we start growing, we kind of get more toward the narrow end, and we won't do as many things. And then we kind of think we're there, and then we go down another little notch deeper. And maybe that's what you're about to do. And maybe that's what all this is about, is whatever you felt just a minute ago, talking about you as a 14-year-old, talking about these kids. That may be what it is. And I just encourage you, Brian, a lot of people won't set aside all that competency they've spent their life building to actually go follow that passion, you know, as I did. Because I thought lean was my thing, and then it ended up being leadership. And I don't know still, is that funnel got a little sharper point down there somewhere for me? I don't know if there is or not. I've already found it, maybe. I don't know. But that's where you got to go right there. There ain't nothing else I said today except for asking you that question that brought out that good stuff, what I call it.
Yeah, I am and grateful of what all that has done. In fact, the former owner where I spent 28 years, he told me, Brian, he said, that's made you who you are today. And when we can embrace, oh man, I mean, I'm definitely preaching to the choir. Your wife is an example of this to a much greater extent. But realize, you know what? Those things were horrible and they were difficult and all those things, but they become stepping stones.
Yeah.
That we can grow and develop from and overcome. And our past is not our prison.
Yeah.
It's huge. It's really when you realize that instead of becoming a victim, become a victor. And that's just, if more people could understand that, we'd be a better place.
Yeah, man, you may have to take that thing and make a whole book out of that story. If you could share that, that'd be powerful, especially if you go down the youth path, because your story as a youth and then where you've come to now, and then go back to help those young folks, and they need some help, and they need somebody who can talk about that transformation, because a lot of people don't see it, you know. And I think today, Brian, people like us who are actually have learned maybe the hard way, but we actually learned. That's the key point. It don't matter if you learn the easy way or the hard way. What matters is, do you learn? But somehow the hard way teaches you a little bit better lesson, a little bit deeper lesson than just kind of learning from somebody else. When you learn because you did it the hard way, you get a deeper lesson. But that's super, super powerful. And you mentioned Rhea. You know, Rhea's she's running this show in the background. We wouldn't be doing this without Rhea, because I wouldn't worry about all this mess, what I call it, all the stuff. This is what I like to do: talk to people, help people. But I don't even know if you know, I can't remember who I shared with, but we were just in Texas last week. She got invited to be on Dr. Phil's show, and she could have been the main attraction story, but she was actually there in a support role as an advocate for victims of sexual assault. But you never know where this stuff will take you. She didn't ever plan for that to happen. It just happened. We didn't ever plan to speak at Yale, but it did. It just happened. And that's what you got to keep doing, man. But when you tap into what you tapped in a minute ago, that's what you got to get tapped into. And it's hard sometimes because I got all 28 years experience in construction. And it may have set you up for something that ain't got nothing to do with construction. And that's a hard thing for some people to see. Let me ask you this too, because and again, I apologize. I really do know lots of people, Brian. I talk to a lot of folks, but I think I've seen you do disc stuff or no?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Talk about that a little. I don't think I've had anybody on the show that even talked about disc and personality profiling. I understand about it and all, but some people don't. So share about what you do with that and how you bring that to the table.
Yeah. So the disc part made me realize and understand and accept myself for some things that are abrasive to other people. I happen to be a dominant, the D personality, and the I, which is more inspiring personality type. My S and my C, so supportive and caution, are below average. In fact, my C's in the basement. That's why I take risks that other people won't take. But I've also learned that I need those other personality types. And it doesn't have to be DISC. There's a lot of different personality assessments out there. But what I love about it is that we accept other people, recognize our differences, and then learn to leverage those differences. So, if you're a C and you're a very cautious type, I want to consult you before I make a decision, because I'm not that type. But I may need to help you and pull you across the finish line with my direct personality type. So to recognize, especially when you're working with teams and cultures, that yes, we're all different, but we can all work together towards a common goal and respect each other. And one of the things that helped me to learn, I don't have to agree with you to understand you and respect you. And that's been very helpful to me to deal with other people, to not set up an offense and defense, to say, you know what, this is the way you feel about this. I don't agree with you, but we're still going to work together.
Yeah, that's some good stuff, Brian. That's a lot of stuff going on in the world today. Is a lot of people ain't trying to understand each other. They're trying to make everybody be like me, and I don't do that. I don't care who anybody is. You can be whoever you want, but don't expect me to be like you. I'm going to be like me. and so that helps you. That helps teams, leaders, but you come in, you facilitate on-site development programs around the DISC personality profiling models. That's right.
Correct. Yeah. So what we do is we have everybody take those assessments that's on the team, and then we talk to them after they get their reports and their assessment. It's an algorithm. I mean, it's something where the computer, you answer a bunch of questions and it decides and determines what your personality type is and how you're wired. And then we take that information, we realize, what's this team made up of? Is it balanced? Is it not balanced? You don't have to be a balanced team, but you can recognize when you're not balanced and maybe seek outside help and consulting for, those other personality types. But it's just really good to understand what drives you crazy about another person that you're working with. If you'll use that as a way to support you, well, it'll drive you a whole lot less crazy when you understand it and you work together.
Yeah, that's awesome. And again, I think I've seen you do MC, some type of events. You do that. Is that something you want to do or you just happen to do?
So I think you'll remember I hosted Live to Lead for about 4 years.
Yeah.
And then I got invited to MC another event in our area. And so I did that. Not something that I'm just crazy about doing, but if I get asked to do something and I feel like I'm capable of it, I've done so. I've actually MC'd that event the last 2 years, and this will be the 3rd year. That's the Unstoppable event in Lakeland, Florida, where we bring in live speakers and we do what we call live and local.
Okay. I could just imagine you'd be really good at that. Again, we're good at things a lot of times that we don't really want to be doing and maybe shouldn't be doing, but I could see that. I bet you do a good job with that.
I have fun with that, and like to support that event. And the Kelvin McCree, who's one of my fellow authors in the Voices for Leadership book, he's a local guy. He does big keynote presentations, speaks to large audiences. And so he decided, you know what, if I'm going to do this across the country, even across the world for him, then we should do something locally. And it's funny because he speaks to 5,000 people out there, and then he comes to Lakeland and speaks to 150 people, and they don't even recognize the fact that this is a world-class speaker that's speaking to them.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing, man. It's just wild how that works, isn't it? Sometimes I don't think we're nothing special, but sometimes Rhea and I are speaking to multiple thousands of people, at a big conference. And we were actually the closing keynote speakers at the Lean Construction Institute conference up in Detroit. I think it was where it was at. I get mixed up, Detroit, Chicago. I think it was Detroit, but then sometimes we'll go speak to 5 people in a room. So we don't care. We just want to help people. And I actually like speaking to the smaller groups better than the bigger groups, because those big groups, you're just so disconnected. You sharing a message with a lot of people, but you ain't connected the same as when it's 5, 10, 15, 20 people, or even 30 or 40 is a good size. But yeah, we're going to be down in Orlando in October speaking at FabTech. Have you ever been to a FabTech event?
Some of my counterparts when I was working, so I worked in the field, so we didn't have as much fabrication equipment as our fab shop did.
Okay.
But some of my colleagues would go to that from the fab shop. So I had amazing photos I'd see of them being at some of the amazing events. So we'll definitely have to connect while you're down here.
Yeah, man, I think we'd be there October 16th. And if our schedule, we got a pretty busy October, but if it's open enough, we love Florida. Hopefully I'm going to get to see a lot of you in the future, because we're getting close to probably thinking about moving to Venice down there, Inglewood. We like the shark teeth. So for everybody, those young folks, Brian, you were talking about you took, was it your niece to the
Yep.
the Venice airport? You flew down there?
Yep.
Because right there, the beach that's right there where the planes come in to land, they fly right over us, and that's like the best spot for looking for shark teeth. We find hundreds of them every time we go down there. It's I forget the name of that beach. It's just the north end of Casperson, but it's got a different name, that little spot right there. So we see the planes. We might have been down there before when you were flying in, but we just love it down in that area. So we probably going to be down there. Then we get to see you quite often.
That sounds really good.
So are you working literally on the 3rd volume right now? You putting it together? Is that where you at with the team?
So we're taking applications from young people. So we got that website up, and I probably should have shared that website with Rhea, but that's voicesforleadership.com.
She'll probably put that up. She's pretty slick. Say it slow so she can get it.
Yeah, voicesforleadership.com. And then the volume 3 tab is where you'll find the application to be a youth author.
Okay, so there's time for people to get in. You ain't got that one filled out yet.
No, we just launched it last week. The application process.
Okay, there it is. Voicesforleadership.com. Is that right?
That's it. Yep.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. I'm going to look forward to actually reading that one right there myself. So I'm going to have to be thinking if I know some young folks out there that I can point in your direction. And how many people do you put in those books?
So our past 2 volumes have been 40. For this one, we're going to limit it to 20 and expand the amount of words. We are learning that 800 to 1,000 word counts not quite enough for people to get their message complete. So we're going to lower the number of authors, especially for the youth, to allow them to get 1,500, 1,800 word count for their chapters.
Okay, so what's some quotes or thoughts from you in your life, like some quotes that they just your go-to quotes, whether they're yours or they ain't got to be mine. Certainly, I'm just anybody's. Any quotes that you want to share that just resonate with you?
Well, Henry Ford, that whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right, is one of my favorites. Thomas Edison.
Let me interrupt you. Before you go to another one, you got a couple examples in your life or your career, personally or professionally, where you ended up on one side of his quote or the other because of what you thought that you could share? Because I think that'd be kind of good if anything sticks out to you.
A guy that leaves a 28-year career in construction, doing really well. In fact, I asked my coach, I said, why am I even considering this? It's like stupid. And I told my 25-year-old son the other day, I was like, from a monetary standpoint, I should have just stayed there for another several years and just Cadillac'd.
Yep.
But when this came to me, it's more of a passion. I'm like you. I like helping people. Definitely not setting the world on fire, but definitely helping people. So that was think you can, think you can't. I decided I can be an entrepreneur and I can do these workshops and do these things to help people. And that's worked for me to date.
Well, that's cool. I know you've heard this before, but I want to share it with you mainly to share it with the audience, but also to reinforce it with you. We've heard all these people, these big dogs in the world, I call them. We've heard them all, many of them say, it takes 10 years, 20 years to become overnight success. And I always tell people, Rhea and I about halfway there, and you've been in it about 5 years, so that tells you what you got to look forward to. It doesn't happen overnight. I mean, for a rare few, maybe somehow it does, but most people, you got to just go and go and go and go. I mean, Rhea and I think a lot of people think we've done something. I always think we haven't done nothing. My mom's always saying, "Man, you've done plenty. You've done a lot." I'm like, I ain't done nothing yet, not for what I can see and can hope for, but we've helped people. That's what matters, and you're helping people already, but it takes a long time.
Our moms are biased, Mac. My mom thinks I built Disney whole soul hand by myself. She'll say, "We'll be driving by something. Brian built that." I'm like, "Mom, we just kind of worked on the project. I didn't build that." I mean, it sounds like Brian out there with a hammer and a bag of nails building the swans on top of the Swan Hotel.
Yep.
But definitely they think high of us. But honestly, what I like to tell people is, when you're climbing a set of stairs, too often we get focused on the steps ahead of us. Sometimes we need to turn around and look where we already are.
Yeah.
And look back and say, wow, I've already overcome all these steps. And now look at this view. Look what I've accomplished.
Yep.
Still got to keep going, moving forward, keep climbing that mountain, like Max says, but appreciate what you've already done and spend a moment there.
Yeah. That's some good stuff right there. Just slow down a minute and look around, see what's actually happened, right?
Yeah. Not be so disappointed that, I'm not as elevated as some of these, superstars are, but I've made an impact what I've done already.
Yep. And the odds are 5 years into where they started at, you probably ahead of them. And how long Rhea and I've been in, about 14 years now. But the first 5 years though, we were broker than we had ever been. Don't forget that part. We were raking and scraping and struggling, but we wouldn't give up because it's what we wanted to do. And so yeah, I understand that. So what leadership guru has had the biggest impact on you in your life that caused that you, is it John or is it somebody else?
John has had a huge impact. I love the way John simplifies messages.
John Maxwell, for those that don't
John
know
Maxwell,
who
that's
about.
right. Yep. And he's just simplifying, and he's he's real about it. He's gonna say the same thing, do it over and over again. That consistency compounds is another great quote that is true. Yeah. I mean, having those podcasts every week and then now every other week has led to being in the top 5% ranking. Yep. Doing these blogs have sent more people to my website than I ever imagined. So definitely, having with John Maxwell, many quotes, many things by him are just fantastic. I do use that Stephen M. R. Covey, Speed of Trust, and a lot of things. You probably are familiar with that Tuckman's model of group development.
No.
When I say it, you probably will, because I do this in training and people say no, and they, oh yeah. So storming, forming, norming, and performing.
Oh, yeah. I've heard
right? that. That's Tuckman's model of group development. And when I come, and it was during one of my workshops, I come to this realization: what happens between norming and performing? What I discovered was it's trust. When me and you are working together, or a crew is working together, and we start to trust one another, get out of our way. So definitely that speed of trust and creating trust, developing trust, all those phases are natural. They're going to happen, but we can reduce that storming phase when we respect each other, know each other, and begin to trust each other.
Yeah, that's some good stuff. One thing I always say, if you want to build a high performance team, trust is a must. I mean,
trust is a must.
You got to have it. I mean, any kind of good, strong relationship. And the Speed of Trust book you keep referencing, that's my number 3 book all time. And 7 Habits is number 1. John's 5 Levels of Leadership is number 2, and Speed of Trust is number 3 on my all-time list. And I always tell people the Speed of Trust book, it's got some of that 7 Habit kind of feel in the beginning and in the end that just make your head hurt, because to me it wasn't that interesting. I understand it, but But when you get to the 4 cores of credibility and you get to the 13 behaviors, that's the gold right there. Especially the counterfeit of the behavior. You know, you got the behavior, you got the opposite, and you got the counterfeit. So anybody listening, looking for trust resource, I highly recommend. I mean, it's my number 3 all time, and Brian's right on the money with Stephen M.R. Covey. And if you don't know, his dad is Stephen R. Covey. The difference, a lot of people think they're the same people and don't really understand, but Stephen R. Covey dad, Stephen M.R. Covey is the son, and they both got great content. Anything else you want to share, Brian, that maybe I didn't ask or you thought of, or you just want to share in general?
No, Mac, I'm just grateful for being in your circle, having you as a mentor. You've definitely influenced to the positive, the things I'm doing, and you and Rhea out there making it happen, hearing y'all speak. That event you were mentioning was the SCORE, which is Southeastern Construction Owners and Associates Roundtable.
Yeah.
I think at the time you came down, I was the treasurer for that group, and today I'm the vice president of that group.
Okay.
So definitely an amazing group of contractors that meet annually. But you came and spoke, and I think you wound up with 2 other events because of that. I think you went to TIC and maybe one other, but definitely.
What was TIC?
I think so, yeah.
What is that, though?
The industrial company. I think you went and spoke to one of their groups at a job site, if I remember right.
I don't think so. Is that
the
name
not.
of the company?
The industrial company. TIC is the abbreviation.
I don't remember that, but it could have happened. But most of the time I don't forget the clients, but I don't.
Okay.
Anyway,
I felt like you almost left there. A few months later, you were at one of their job sites doing a speech. Maybe I'm confused with another contractor, but definitely.
Yeah, I don't think so. You know, I remember that event though, speaking with your group. It's the only event during COVID we ever had to speak with a mask on. That was the hardest thing, man.
Yeah.
I made the joke with Rhea. We love the group. We love the people. I said, if I'd have known we had to speak with a mask on, I would have turned that one down.
That was such a trying time because I was having the conversation. We're in the lobby with each other without a mask. Why are we wearing a mask in the meeting? It was stupid. But yeah, it was. As you know, that whole time period was very challenging.
Yeah, people didn't know what to do because they couldn't trust. And now it's even worse. People can't trust. I mean, trust is a huge deal. It's the missing link. That's why it's so really critical. Is. Folks like you, me and Rhea, John, Covey's, all the people who are helping people learn to grow and develop their character so that they can build trust based on high standard values. I mean, everybody's got trust. Even criminals got trust. They trust that they ain't gonna go tell on them because they're both criminals, right? But it comes down to what are your values? What are that trust? The values that you're building it on. That's good stuff. I appreciate you being on the show, Brian. Any last words?
I have thoroughly enjoyed it, and keep doing what you're doing.
All right, folks. Reach out to Brian if you think he can help you, or even if you think he can't. Reach out to him, talk to him, get to know him. You never know how somebody may be able to help you when you start connecting with people. He's a great guy. I value his friendship and look forward to seeing what he's going to do in the future because I think he's just getting warmed up, and I think that about myself too. Not nothing against Brian. I think we're all just getting warmed up when we're on a serious growth path. So, all right, folks, I'll talk to you next time.
Make it happen or someone else will. It might as well be you. Are you serious about taking your career and your life to the next level and beyond? Check out Mac Story's Blue Collar Leadership Series books and others, now available on audio, along with paperback and ebooks at Amazon, iTunes, and Audible. Please visit bluecollarleadership.com to learn about Mac's books, programs, special offers, certifications, and more. Thank you for listening to the Blue Collar Leadership Podcast.